hello, and welcome to another episode of Sunrise Gardens. Hey everybody, welcome to May 2022 Sunrise Gardens.
Start up here on the porch, take a look at the pea cage so you can see all the different pea pods forming here. Hopefully you can see that. Pretty thick pea pods coming in. I've been eating 3 or 4 of these a day. It's been great. So started these about a month earlier this year, and they love the cold weather. That's the pea cage. Swing on over here to the other side of the porch, you see the basil plants. Doing pretty good. Got a bunch of little baby basils coming in too. It's reinforcements, but I've been eating the top of this every day probably for a few weeks with my dinner. Next is the kale cage. It's screened in to avoid the butterflies from laying their worms on my leaves in there. So I've been eating one of these strands of kale pretty much every day. Got reinforcements down here. More kale there. And if you swing around here, you can get a view of the 18 pepper plants that are in the 7-gallon pots here. So if you come down low, you can kind of see a lot of these are already forming a lot of peppers here. I'm eating 3 or 4 of these little mini peppers a day, just trying to get them off the plant so the plant can stimulate and have more vegetative growth. I don't want it to stop and just start growing all these peppers, so every day I'm pinching off some of these, sauteing them with my stir fry, or just eating them raw, or whatever it takes, getting through them there. And here is the famous Red Reaper. It's only in a small gallon container right now, but eventually it'll get potted up here, and some Red Reapers, reinforcement peppers here, just in case something happened to the other ones. I got backups. Rosemary, love rosemary. Take like this and rub it, and then smell that, and changes your whole meal to a better flavoring. And that's the porch garden. So let's start down here with the greenhouse next. Got the French door here on the greenhouse so that the rabbits can't get in, but the air still can reach the plants. Back there in the back row, watermelon. Lots of watermelon. Got big plans for the watermelon. I'll show you that in a bit. And here's all the okra coming in. I've got a whole army of okra coming in here. That's pretty much it for the greenhouse. Just transplanted these gigantic eggplant plants into these 13-gallon containers yesterday. Pretty excited about that. Here's potato plants, a couple 20-gallon containers here. You can see these big containers. Potatoes are doing excellent this year. Is Yukon Gold potatoes. My little toolbox here. I like to put a rock on there. Okay. And let's swing around over here to the garden here. There's Taz in there. He's going to try to get out, but let's see if we can keep him in there while we undo these latches here. You going to try to get out of there, bud? He said, I got big plans, man. As soon as you open that door, I'm out of here. Alright. You gotta stay in for the video, okay? Can't be running around while I'm trying to do this video. I won't know where you're at. So far, so good. He's listening. Good boy. You know you're supposed to ham it up for the video? You hamming it up for the video? Huh? He says, "Hello world." Hi Taz. Hi Taz. He's like, "I'm the real star of the garden." He's like, "Forget the plants. They came to see me." Alright. So let's latch this back up here. And then we'll do a little trick here to keep Taz in while I'm in. Hopefully. Excuse me. Excuse me, Taz. Put this deer fencing up here. Latch it up to the piece of twisty tie I got here on the inside. We'll see if we can't just keep that varmint from getting out of there while we're giving the rest of this video. Here we go. Here, why don't you show us what this is? So you got the lettuce here coming out, volunteer, out of the brick, so I figured, hey, why not let it grow, right? Some more rosemary, brand new sage plant to replace the old one from last year there, coming in great. Another Yukon Gold potato plant in the corner. Lettuce beds, eating a huge mixing bowl worth of lettuce every night from these, pretty much. Every night anyway. Oh, looks like we got a volunteer garlic back in there. I don't know how I'll ever harvest it, but it's in between the fencing. But I could probably get back there eventually. And this is my carrot bed. Lots of carrots coming in here. A little bit of cilantro volunteer there. Can't be helped. Lots of corn this year, so you'll notice a lot of corn. Because I love the garden corn is so much different than the store-bought corn. The kernels are like twice as big, and the cob is just as tender as the corn, and it's just a whole different experience. I mean, I don't know why it's different than the store-bought, but it definitely is. So I grew a lot of my own corn this year. Probably 20 different corn stalks here across the garden. Little baby corn back there growing there, reinforcements, but you got the big stalks in here, you know, and the bean plants all mixed in there, and the bottom starting to vine. This one's actually already spiraling up, so the bean plants are loving it, loving all that rain we got yesterday and the day before. This back bed here is the arugula. It's really good little spicy kind of a lettuce. It's really yummy. Pour in your salad, not too much though, but just enough, and it really changes your salad for the better. You can actually eat these little flowers too from the arugula. They're really good. Tastes just like arugula. And then of course you got the scarecrow guarding the garden. And sometimes that even scares me, man. You know, get those big hands coming at you. But that's the scarecrow, and then you got the garlic bed here. Growing some beans in the midst with some corn. A lot of garlic in there though, I've been eating that. And also scallions, spring onions. Swiss chard bed. Been eating a lot of the Swiss chard here. Corn again. And some beans mixed in there too. You can actually see some baby beans coming up in there that just planted recently. It's reinforcements. You don't want all the beans to come in at once, so I threw a little seed, couple seeds in there after the other beans started to vine up. And here you have a cinder block garden here with all these volunteer pepper plants in all these little pots, because I put my homemade compost into these holes this year, and my homemade compost happened to have a ton of pepper seeds in it, so I just let these come up this year to see what happens, you know, like all these pepper plants coming up in each one of these holes, you know, and more corn of course in the middle here with lots of beans. You want to plant the beans next to the corn, because it'll the beans will actually vine up the corn, and you'll get even more height out of your beans, because the corn will get way up past these green things. It'll get almost up to here, probably, maybe even higher, and then you'll get even more reach with your beans as they spiral up the corn. There's a volunteer pumpkin from my compost from last year, so I just let it come in. I figure I don't like pumpkins in the raised bed so much, but let's actually move it this way. Eventually I want to get it moved out of here, so I'm going to kind of like lean it this way, so it comes out of the garden, and I'm going to have it go across here and back in there, so it's out of the way. So that's the pumpkin there. There's some actual cucumbers in here too somewhere. Ah, here's one. Cucumber. So that's that bed. You got Taz's food here. Where is Taz? There he is. Hey Taz, still doing okay? Alright. And got some beets here in this bed. Little baby beets there, and back there too. Another beet plant. Of course another corn sitting there coming up. But another corn here in the front row. I've got 3 in the front row. But the big thing in this bed, of course, is the 2 tomato San Marzano tomato plants that I buried alive about 2 weeks ago, maybe longer, 3 weeks ago maybe. And I put the big root ball down on this corner, and I buried it all the way up to this point here where it comes up, and it was only like probably like this much showing. That's how much I left out of the plant. The rest was buried alive, and this is what comes out of it, is a gigantic plant that will be anchored in, so to speak, and grow probably 300 cherry tomatoes for me. You know, each one of these. There's another one here, so it's like the twin towers in this bed here. And then you've got Taz's catnip here. It's quite the experience if you just stick your face in there and sniff it. It's just such a great aroma. Taz was actually in there earlier tearing this one up. I could see him over here chewing on it, which is fine. That's what it's there for. Let him tear it up. So I've got some Swiss chard coming out of here in these little holes back here. I've got some scallions in this at the end of this long bed here. They're all going to seed, so that's kind of cool to see. See if we can get a better view of those little scallion seeds. You know, they're kind of interesting looking. But I'm gonna let those just spread seeds everywhere because I love scallions, so just kind of let them blow around. There's another San Marzano tomato plant here, anchored in. Every time you see one of these, it's going to be anchored in. The root ball is actually right about here, and it grew. I buried it sideways underneath here, and left about 1 inch or 2 showing right there, and that's what it grew into. So another brilliant plant there. Pull these grass seeds out of here. But there's another corn here. I put corns at the end of each of the tomato plant beds to take advantage of these tomato stakes. The corn can actually be twined up to them and it won't fall over, so that's why I did that. And you got the beans coming here in the corner with the corn there. Of course, anywhere there's beans, I like to have corn, like I said. Same thing back here, more beans and corn. Beans and corn. Got a corn back there in the corner. And another corn right there. And then the garlic plant here, just sitting there. Volunteer garlic that comes back every year, so I just let it grow. More beans and corn in the corner. Over there. That's the theme of the day, is beans and corn, huh? Well, that's what I like the most, my garden. So figured why not just keep growing what I really like, right? And then these corns are doing really great. These are some of the first ones I brought in. You kind of see the stalks down there. You know how big and they're getting there. The beans coming in next to them. Another corn at the end of the tomato bed. Like I said, it'll get bound to this. Got Taz's seat back here that he likes. He likes drag this from the woods for him. He likes this little rock here too, so I like to keep that there for him. He always knocks it around. And then these things I found in the woods, and it took me a couple hours to, like, they're too heavy to carry, so I just rolled them bit by bit all the way back to the house. These big honking things, I don't know if you can see how huge that is, but yeah, they're gigundous, especially these two, this one here and this one here were the ones I had to roll. But yeah, it was worth it because this bed's starting to rot, right? You can kind of see that in there, that rotten wood there. And it won't matter really so much if it rots now. It actually feed the garden, feed the beds as it rots, because with these bricks here, that'll be the next stage of the bed. It'll just be a cinder block bed, you know, rather than a wood bed. And when the other side rots out, I'll do the same thing. Put bricks over there, so I don't have to rebuild the bed, you know, so that's a big win for me. And plus the new bed will last forever, you know, instead of having to rebuild it every few years. Just thinking ahead and coming up with a sustainable plan, right? Okay, and then here's some more Yukon Gold potatoes in the corner here. And another tomato San Marzano plant here, anchored in. Little corn hiding back there in the corner. And you got, let's see what's around this bend right here. Oh, Taz is down there. Hey, bud. He loves that corner. You like eating the grass over there? He likes all that tall grass back in there. Chews on that. And there's a pretty good view for him right here too of the woods and the birds and everything. So he sits there and stares out those woods for hours. But yeah, back here we've got, guess what? More corn and beans. You know, my favorite. Oh, it looks like we got a weed over here. Can't stand these weeds coming through. When I see them, I get them. I'm going to do what's called weeding in place. When the weed's big enough, you can just take it, cut it in half so it doesn't grow anymore, and then just throw it there, right? And so that will actually feed the garden over time rather than throwing the weed out of the bed. But be sure to cut it in half with your fingernail, because if you just pick it up and lay it, the roots might retake and it just might start growing again. So, okay, so this triangle bed here, or pyramid bed I should call it, right? It started falling apart. It's from Home Depot, you know, it doesn't have any screws, it just all snaps together, so you get what you pay for, you know. In the end, it started expanding when the winter time came enough times and the ice expanded it out, you know. So I threw all these cinder blocks around it to kind of reinforce it. So I'll keep doing that too, you know. This bed will be here forever because I'll just keep building cinder blocks around it. Nifty solution there. So yeah, I've got some beans in the back here that like to climb this fence, so that works out perfect. They actually go over the top of the fence and they come out the other side a little bit where I can harvest them over there on the other side of the fence as well, which is handy. If you don't feel like coming into the garden one day, just come down and grab some beans off the end. These ferns here are the asparagus. You let them grow for 3 years before you pick them. When they're this thin, you don't want to pick them. You let them grow and get their root system going. So those are probably still in their second or third year. Maybe this is the second year. But I'll let them go until they get as thick as my index finger, and that's when I'll start eating them. I got some beets coming in there too. You can see those beets there. Anytime you see that red stem, that's a beet right there. The red. Let's see here. Corn loves the deep soil, so I put it in the top of the pyramid bed there. 3 big ones there and a little baby one reinforcing me there in the corner. These are my mature asparagus beds. They don't look like much here, but I've been eating. I just pick them as soon as they come in because you don't want them to get too tall, right? So you can see all the stalks here. That's like a stalk that I cut, and you can see how thick that is, right? Put my finger there, you could kind of compare it, right? Like how thick that is versus my finger. These are pretty thick stalks. So, you know, I've been getting some really thick asparagus over here. Eating probably, I don't know, 5, 6 a day for a while, and then it slowed down. But here's another one. coming in. I'll probably eat that for dinner tonight. Throw it in with the rest of my stir fry. And this bed has some beets in it here. Beet there and a beet there, and some scallions going to seed again at the end. That's my sprinkler system. I've set this up in such a way that it's actually able to hit the entire garden, so it goes back and forth just perfectly and hits every last bed. So that's kind of nice when it's really hot out and don't want to come down in water. You just turn it on for 15 minutes or so. And here's another cinder block bed. Let's climb up here on my pyramid cinder block makeshift reinforcement area here, and you can see these are the same thing that I told you in the other bed for these fallen. This is all homemade compost where I had a bunch of pepper seeds in there, and so these pepper plants kept coming up, so I just let them come up this year. I figured, well, let's see what happens. Maybe all these will grow like 2 or 3 peppers. It's not that big of a pot, but maybe if it grows 2 or 3 peppers each and you get all these holes, that could still amount to quite a bit of peppers. I don't know how many holes are here, but if you multiply each one of those by all these by 3, that's a lot of holes, a lot of peppers rather. So there's a cucumber plant right there. I forgot to mention that once this lettuce over here bolts, both of these beds, the lettuce will bolt in like a month. That means it'll go straight to the sky. It'll start to get real tall and real bitter, and the leaves will get real tough. And that's when you want to just pull it out. And then I'll rake the soil down and I'll put cucumbers in here so I can make a bunch of pickles for the winter. And those will be ready near the end of the season. And then in this one I'm going to put okra. You saw that in the greenhouse. So as soon as okra is a hot weather crop, so as soon as it's hot enough to, and it's pretty much developed in the greenhouse there, I'll bring it out here, dig up all this lettuce, harvest as much as I can, put it in the fridge. Lasts like a month in the fridge. And then just before it bolts I'll do that, And then I won't let it bolt actually. I'll just anticipate the bolt and harvest just before the bolt. So that's the trick there. And that's pretty much it for this section of the garden. Let's try to keep Taz locked in here so it doesn't try to run off while I'm showing you the rest here. Let's latch these 3 latches. It should be good enough to deter him. Sometimes I'll, in addition to latching these little latches, I'll take this brick here and I'll kind of wedge it like that so you can't really push on that. And I'll put this other brick here, kind of reinforce the deer fencing against there, and I'll kind of push this into these little rivets to keep the deer fencing from kind of flopping. Alright, that should be solid there. This is all my spare soil. I filled these up to the brim with the free compost from the city, so each one of these Rubbermaids is filled with fresh compost free from the city, which is probably costs $500 if you bought all this from the store. I made 10-12 trips to the compost pile this year, probably a record for me. So I wanted a piece of gravel in there, so you gotta watch out, sometimes there's gravel in there, so I just take it and toss it down there with the rest of the junk that I've been tossing back there. But yeah, even though it's got some weird pieces in it, gravel, whatever, sticks, it's still way better than the store-bought stuff. Taz, what you doing, bud? Showing everybody the compost. It's got really like rich compost because of the leaves. This is like a whole leaf here, and if you smell that, here, smell that. But that's what makes the compost so good, and the way these leaves are broken down. And then it's like black gold it turns into in your soil. So yeah, that's good stuff. Still not as good as my homemade compost though. That stuff's even better, but still it's on par. And I've got a couple bins back here also filled with compost. These 2 are completely filled. So I've got reinforcements for next year ready to go in case sometimes they don't put the compost out, So this year I stocked up just in case. And here's all my squash. So you've got this, this is part of my compost, my homemade compost here is in this, here you put the tarp over so the rain doesn't wash away all the nutrients. But then you got the beginnings of the squash garden which goes down to here. You can see a big flower coming in there. hopefully it's gonna make me some squash, right? Soon. I think I've got one squash coming in maybe that I saw the other day. I just can't remember where. But it's really small right now. But it's right there. You can see that right where my index finger's pointing there. That's one squash. And then these little things right here are actually edible. This is another squash you can see coming in there. You can take these off and eat them. This is a gigantic catnip plant. So I left it there because it was a volunteer that made it through the winter. And when they do that, and they make it through the winter like that on their own, they actually grow up to be like this tall, especially in soil that deep. It's going to be a gigantic plant, and Taz will get a lot of catnip from that. And so that's why that's there. And there's another squash hiding back there. And a couple more squash here. So that's the squash garden. I got more volunteer catnip back there too. See that right down there? That's a big catnip plant too. That'll be gigantic. Probably not as big as this one because this one has good soil underneath it, and that one's just up in a bunch of random soil, but from the yard. So yeah, let's head down here really quick and just show you Taz's treehouse since I'm right here. You got this trail I made, and I weed whacked all this out. Kind of goes down, down, down into this spiral staircase, and then this huge oak tree fell one year, 5 years ago, whatever it was, or maybe it was just 2 years ago, and it was still healthy when it fell. The wind just blew it over, and the root system's still kind of in the ground here, so it doesn't really rot, and it just kind of sits there intact. So Taz likes to climb on this thing. Goes down here, and he goes through all these different beams and intricacies of all these beams. I made one for him that goes way out there on the end, and he sits out there on the end of that one and looks out in the woods. And he also eats this grass right here. He likes this grass, and then he'll come over and climb up this tree here. He'll climb up to about here. You can see he bites on this thing here for a second, and then he climbs backwards back down like I trained him to climb backwards, because cats, if they're not trained to climb backwards, sometimes they might get scared and run up a tree and not know how to get down, and they'll starve to death at the top of the tree. But Taz knows how to climb backwards, so he'll climb back down backwards, and then he'll go over here and he'll hang out on his rock garden that I made him. So it's like all these different rocks and slabs that he can chill out on. You know, he loves the rock garden. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I made the trail keeps going over there. It goes all the way around for like a quarter mile that way. And I also made it go quarter mile this way. Or maybe it's like a half mile that way. So, and it actually goes even further this way, but it's like not as nice of a trail. You have to wear like long pants, but you could go for like almost 5 miles that way if you really wanted to. And it comes out by this really big church, which is really cool. And so that's Taz's treehouse. Quick detour, right? A little staircase here. Ugh. Spiral staircase made of roots. Here's another root stair. Another one. Ugh. Oh. That's the bird that laid eggs on my bathroom windowsill. She's probably trying to find food for her babies. Hey there. I think it's a robin. Hey there. She knew she was being watched. So that's up there on my bathroom windowsill. Little nest up there that she made. I'll show you some footage of that, of the birds. The 4 baby robins actually hatched in there. They're up there right now. So I've got some footage of that I'll show you. Hello? Hi, birdies in there. What you doing? Sleeping? Hello? Hello? So here's a new trail. I used to go up this way to get up to my yard, but it's kind of steep. I put these mats here, but my neighbor had their water main redone over there, and this tractor thing came through here and like tore all this out as they came through. So I took advantage of that and put some mats over here. It's not so steep, you know. You kind of just walk on these mats here and make your way into the yard, and it's you come out at a more level spot, so it's less air prone, or less slippage there. And here's the pumpkin patch. Volunteer pumpkins this year. I didn't plant any of these. So there's one there, corner here, and another one there, and another couple there coming in, and all those are pumpkins. This one's a pumpkin. That one's a pumpkin. So, like I said, I didn't plant any of these. There's pumpkins back there. Another one. So, you know, I planted pumpkins here last year, and this year they all just came back on their own, which is really cool. So I'm excited for that. All those cinder blocks are from the woods that I found. Every cinder block you see in this garden, I didn't buy any of them. I found them all in the woods. So there's probably 100 of them by now that I found. Drag them all up that hill I just showed you, each one individually. Up that steep hill I just went up with the spiral staircase to give you an idea of how much work it was. But hey, I didn't have to pay for gym dues either. So think of all the money I saved there. It's hundreds of dollars a month depending on the gym you go to. So this is the new bed that I wanted to show you. This is the watermelon bed. So the watermelon's in the greenhouse right now, but this is the new bed this year. Primo cinder blocks that I found at a certain point in the woods down there. It was a little bit longer of a haul to get them up here, but it was worth it because they're really good cinder blocks, you know, and they look really nice. And I'll show you the time lapse of that right now. All right, and that concludes this episode of Sunrise Gardens. Later.